So this is the final video in our exploration of stage 1 of the UbD template, where we're identifying desired results or the learning goals that we want students to master. And so we are finally diving into the very bottom part of the stage 1 part of the UbD template, and that is acquisition goals. So if you take a gander at this template snip, you'll see, like I mentioned, acquisition goals are at the very bottom of our stage 1. And acquisition goals are fit into two different types. So we have knowledge goals, which is explicit, discrete knowledge that students will know, and skills, which is our explicit skills that we want students to be able to do. So this template specifies that knowledge is what facts and basic concepts will students know and recall, and what skills and processes will students be able to use. So when we're thinking about acquisition goals in particular, we want to kind of keep in mind that a fact is a fact and a skill is a skill. We acquire each in turn. So you would explicitly teach facts and you would explicitly teach skills more than likely. Acquisition does not yield understanding, but it is necessary, but not sufficient. So just because you have facts and no skills, it doesn't necessarily mean that you understand. I'm sure you can think of students in your classes that have memorized the facts and can do the skills, but like for whatever reason, they don't truly understand. They're not making meaning in the same way that other students might be doing. That being said, we've spent a ton of time over our professional learning sessions thinking about what it means to understand, but we also want to consider what facts and skills do we need to teach kids, because kids can't understand without skills and facts as well. So kind of going back to this previous slide, this knowledge and skills, these are necessary because by investigating knowledge and skills over the course of the unit, it provides a basis for students to make meaning and reach these understandings. And we want students to be able to use their knowledge, skills, and understandings to be able to transfer those to those transfer goals, those long-term accomplishments that we want them to be able to strategically use their learning with independently. So when we're thinking about creating good acquisition goals, we want to think about identifying specific knowledge to be recalled, facts, definitions, concepts, identifying certain skills to perform competently, actions and processes. And again, kids need to know knowledge and skills in part because these are essential for making bigger connections, conclusions, and applications. So they're necessary for understanding and they're necessary for transfer, which also I think kind of dictates which knowledge and skills we choose, because we want to choose knowledge and skills in the context of a unit that contribute to student transfer and understanding in the long run. So we'll just really quickly look at a few units. We have seen the science unit that has to do with climate of various regions. And so in order for students to be able to attend to the transfer goal and the understanding goal that we had previously mentioned, students might need to know causes of weather and wind patterns, factors affecting climate, causes of the Coriolis effect, how climate affects agriculture. And these are things that can be directly and explicitly taught. Also, students will be skilled at interpreting data, illustrating the relationship between air pressure and temperature. And we want them to be able to interpret isobar maps of gradient pressure. Again, things that we would explicitly teach, and they will help students transfer and understand later on in the unit. For that nutrition unit that we were talking about, where we want students to really understand that the different dietary requirements help different people depending upon their context, and that effective nutrition will really help people physically and mentally. We want kids to know key nutrition terms. We want them to know types of foods in each food group and their nutritional values, the USDA pyramid guidelines, variables influencing nutritional needs, and specific health problems caused by poor nutrition. Remember, all of this knowledge really contributes to our transfer and understanding goals from before. We also want students to be skilled at reading and interpreting nutrition labels, analyzing diets for nutritional value, and planning balanced diets for themselves and others. If students have these skills, then they'll be able to plan, if you intentionally use those skills strategically, depending upon any context we throw at them. So if we give them examples of people with different nutritional needs, they should be able to plan a balanced diet based upon what they know and what they can do. We also have that mathematical unit that focuses on linear functions and students um, determining or solving real world problems that are linear in nature. So kids have to have knowledge in order to do that. So they need maybe the formula for finding slope, the definition of y-intercept, things like that. They also need those mathematical skills like finding distance and midpoint between 2 points and finding the slope between 2 points and interpreting slope. I remember when I was in mathematics, when I was in high school long ago, we learned these knowledge and skills, but I don't remember necessarily having an opportunity to understand anything about mathematics or apply my knowledge, skills, and understanding to solve this new transferable real world problem. So that's kind of like this is what I learned. And then through UbD, we're taking it to the next level. The final unit was the world language unit, where we wanted students to understand how key the Spanish Plaza is. We want students to understand that the Spanish Plaza is so key to Spanish culture. And we also wanted students to understand that the way that they communicate to people might be determined by the context. Like you would communicate differently in a commercial setting as opposed to in an informal setting. So the knowledge that they would learn pertains to layouts of a plaza, various means of transportation and how to correctly use them, prepositions of location. And students will be skilled at giving directions in Spanish to a tourist and correctly conjugating using the relevant Spanish verbs required to describe locations, direction, time, etc. That makes me think of, I didn't learn Spanish, I learned French, but we would conjugate some verbs, and how we conjugated them was dictated by the level of formality being used depending on the context. So that level of formality that is part of our understanding and transfer also shows up in our skills. Kids have to know how to do that in order to reach understanding and transfer. So that was a really quick overview of knowledge and skill goals. And so let's take a second right now and try to figure out which of these sentences are understandings and which are just isolated knowledge or skill. So take a second right now, pause your video. Of these 6 things, some of them are understandings, some of them are knowledge, and some of them are skill. I'll go over the answers in just a second. All right. So you may have paused the video and identified each of these sentences and what they are, these types of goals. So here's number 1. Wind is a force of nature. That is just straight up knowledge. How we measure can influence what we measure. That's an understanding. So students would have to make that generalization over the course of a unit, and teachers would help students give them opportunities to make that inference. Hitting a golf ball far is a matter of translating body movement energy to the club. That is an understanding. So students, let me kind of go back one. Let's see if it'll let me do that. Students would need to know how to hit a golf ball. They would have to understand or know more about body movement energy. But in order to really understand how to hit a golf ball far, we would want them to make this generalization or make this inference. This blue one here, add all values and divide by the number of values to determine the mean. That is a skill. So that's something that we can explicitly teach students, how to determine the mean of several numbers. Number 5, heating of the Earth's surface drives convection, producing winds. That is an understanding. So let's just kind of go back. We could explicitly teach that, I suppose, and that would probably be knowledge then. But by giving students opportunities to explore this concept, maybe exploring through the use of essential questions, through the use of different experiences, students can come to the conclusion that when you heat the Earth's surface, that creates convection, and then that is what produces winds. Additionally, students need to know what convection is. They need to know what wind is. So there's some knowledge that goes into that broader scientific understanding. Finally, this last one is, can release or uncock one's wrists near the bottom of the golf swing. So we already had a golf-related understanding, and in this instance, this is a skill. We would explicitly teach students how to effectively swing a golf club. So hopefully this information was helpful for you in determining what is knowledge versus understanding versus skill. If you feel like you're in a pretty good place, feel free to go back into your UBD unit and dive on in and create some skills and some knowledge goals. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need any assistance.